Can you imagine for 8 hours a day, every day, running, just running, trying to figure out a maze? Nope. Put me on the cook team, okay? Put me on the cook's team. The Maze Runner. Book review. Okay, so The Maze Runner. The quality of the writing, yeah, it was good. I had no issues with the quality of the writing. He's a great writer. James Dashner. I loved that he incorporated a lot of new slang, and it was new for the character Thomas as well. When he came into the maze, there was a lot of just new words that they used that they put into their head. The next little category I have is ease of reading, like how easy was it to read? And yes, it was easy. It is YA, so it is pretty straightforward. There wasn't anything hard to decipher, you know, it's not like it was written like poetry or anything. It is from Thomas's point of view. We're in his head. But it's third person, so we're following Thomas. We get privy to his thoughts, but we also get to see other characters and everything. So I thought that was easy. I don't know really what else to say about it. It's not a hard read. It's made for teenagers, but adults can read it too. Many adults read YA and even middle grade. I myself obviously do that. Characters. All right. I found that they were different enough for it to be diverse, and they were well-developed characters, which I find really important. And like Thomas, Albie, Newt. Albie and Newt are like, even though they have a council and they have different basically departments, and they each have like a leader for that section, Albie and Newt are kind of like number one and number two, and you get to see them a lot, especially dealing with new people like Thomas coming in. And I thought that they each had very strong personalities. I love Newt. Newt is actually my favorite character. I would read a book just about Newt. And there might actually be one, now that I think about it. This is the only one I've read from the whole series, but he's made a trilogy, and then he's made a trilogy of prologues. And I think now he's made even more. So there's a lot to read in here. But we're just focusing on the first one. I want to bring up in this section the sexism that was brought up for characters. So when Teresa comes in, a teenage girl in a world full of teenage boys, obviously there's some sexism going on. I say obviously, but there is just sexism going on. A lot of the boys, before they even see her, they just say, oh, there's a girl in the box. They're like, ooh, they're catcalling already. They're asking what she looks like, you know, things like that. They're already starting to like sexualize her. And I think it's brought up in a really good way. Like, it's brought up, and then Albie and Newt and Thomas, the male leaders of this group, shut it down. You know, I think James Dashner is showing how it's inappropriate, like it happens, and why it shouldn't happen, and how you should act. You should act like Albie or Newt or Thomas. You know, you're going to treat her with respect. And in fact, Albie threatens anyone that even touches her, besides the medics, because she's unconscious, besides medics, that he'll banish them, which means instant death. So, and no one touches her. There's nothing inappropriate that happens, thank goodness. But it turns out once she gains consciousness, she's actually quite fierce and can probably take most of those boys. So he did make the female a strong female, and she did have a reason for being unconscious at that point. So I think that it's a good lesson. And this is the type of book in this age range of who's reading this, to show that, and to show how it's wrong. So I appreciated that. I like that Albie like put his foot down quick. And of course, Thomas has this connection with her that he doesn't quite understand because he doesn't have memories. They all show up with like no memories or artificial memories. But he knows he has a connection with her. He doesn't know what it is. He's trying to figure that out. And he's not going to let anything happen to her either. But it all works out. Okay, and again to the plot development. At the beginning, I was just as frustrated as Thomas, trying to figure everything out the first few chapters because he kept asking questions and no one would answer him. They just kept saying, just wait, just wait. Poor guy was like, I don't want to wait, I want answers right now. And as the reader, I felt that, and I was like, I want the answers right now too. I want them right now too. But things got answered pretty quickly after the first couple chapters, and then things just kept rolling and it was fine. And then then I was hooked, so I didn't mind that as much. And obviously he's brought up in a box into a maze, so the problem starts immediately. And then another problem starts, and that was when Teresa shows up, who's the only girl that has ever been in the glade. So two problems at once. And I really liked it because they were sent there by the creators to get it going, to get them to figure it out. I don't want to give away the ending or what happens, but they're there to figure out a maze. Okay, so themes in this book. Friendship was definitely one of them because the boys, whether they liked it or not, they had a band together to make it out of this maze, to figure it out. They had to work together. They had to. And then another big overarching theme was actually hope and how each of the characters dealt with hope. And how basically they kept each other going. And like, for instance, Albie, he was very much like, we need everybody to have a place. Everyone is important. So they had all these like basically different departments that you could work in, like the food, the maze runners, the gardeners, things like that. And he made sure that everyone, even if it was something small that they were doing, that they knew they were valuable. And I think that is a great mark of a leader. I do like Albie. He was kind of an a-hole. But sometimes leaders have to be that way. You got to be tough, You got to be tough when you need to be tough and soft when you need to be soft. But Newt, I love Newt once again. Newt's my favorite character. He, in my opinion, was the most empathetic person to all the other characters. But he thought if you were working hard, like if you just kept working hard, that you didn't have time to think about your problems, which is true. You didn't have time to overthink the maze because you were dog tired after working. And you were able to see small movement forwards, in your category, like, oh, I made a meal. I fed the people that day, or I gardened, things like that. The maze runners had it a little bit tough because they just kept spinning and spinning and spinning in this circle of puzzle that they could not figure out. But Newt's thing was keep everybody tired, keep everybody working, keep the train moving. So, and I can appreciate that, and that makes sense because him and Albie's way of handling all the boys, I think they really complemented each other. Like, you are valuable, let's keep working hard, we're gonna get through it. Miho was another one of the leaders. Now, he's the leader of the actual maze runners, and he didn't take crap from anybody, not even Albie, Newt, no one. He didn't, no. And he was probably one of the bravest after Thomas. He was like one of the bravest boys out there. And his method of thinking is we cannot stop. Like, not like Newt's, like, work until you're tired. His was like, you can't miss a day, you cannot stop. We've got to figure the puzzle out. We've got to keep gathering the pieces, seeing the pattern, and then we'll figure it out. So so that was one of his character flaws too, because if something got in the way of that and something slowed something down, he did not like that. And it showed. So that was just great character building. They were all really, the main guys, the main boys were all really well fleshed out. I did enjoy them. They were each individual. I knew who was talking by just the dialogue. Like, again, that goes back to good writing. Okay, so the next category I have is how much did I like it and how did I feel about it? Well, I really liked it. I give it a 5-star because I really like dystopian, especially when it's like zeroed in on a small group of people, which most dystopian is. But I thought it was really good. The lessons that they learned and the themes within the book, I really liked it. I like most dystopian, by the way. It's just one of my favorite categories. Why? I don't know. I'm sure that says something about me. But I honestly, I don't know. I don't know what that means. But, yep. I did find it hard at some points because, like, as a mom, I'm getting to the age where, teenagers, I'm just like, oh my gosh, my babies, and I wanted them to succeed, and I didn't want bad things to happen to them, and bad things did happen, so that was really sad. It made me feel sad, but it also made me feel hopeful. That is one of the themes, hope, and so I liked it for that. I think that it was good that I had this motherly instinct because I think that it means that I was connected with the characters because I wanted them to succeed and I wanted them to find out how to get out of the maze, like it's also that puzzler in me. I needed to know. I needed to figure that out. Okay, so there's going to be a little bit of spoiler in this section, so warning, if you've never read it and you want to read it, I'm about to spoil something that is supposed to be dramatic that I didn't find dramatic. Okay, so from the very beginning, and I hadn't brought him up to this point, but Chuck is this little boy. He doesn't have many skills. He's younger. He was the greenie. That's what they call the new people. Right before Thomas, people kind of treat him like poop. But Thomas doesn't. Even though he's a little aggravating, Thomas takes him under his wing and they're friends. And he's going to protect him. And he does. He does everything in his power to protect him. And at the very end, someone tries to kill Thomas. And Chuck gets in the way and sacrifices himself for Thomas. And the whole book, I was like on Team Chuck. I was like, poor Chuck, bring him along, protect that little brother, because he wasn't big enough or strong enough to be like a good fighter type thing, because they had things that they fought. And he was protected all the way through. And then he sacrificed himself for Thomas, and that should have been really dramatic. And as much as I like the book, it just didn't hit for me. I was like, okay. And I was a little alarmed that I didn't feel more sad. And that was the only time it like really took me out of the book. Because I was like, oh my gosh, one of the main, the people who've been around a long time, I guess he's a main character, just died. And I feel nothing. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I guess, like, he was important to Thomas. He was kind of like the relief to all the stress. That was his character's purpose, but he must not have, I don't know. I guess he just didn't. There wasn't enough depth in his character to attach myself to him. I wanted him to be protected, and I wanted to know more about him. And it was sad. What was more sad to me was the promises that Thomas made to him of protecting him and getting him home and letting him see his mom, like that type of stuff. It was more sad to me that Thomas could no longer make those promises happen because he had died. So it was more in Thomas's head. I felt bad for Thomas. I didn't feel bad for Chuck. See, I was just way more attached to Thomas. I guess I just didn't, I guess I just didn't get enough attached to Chuck to matter. Like, if that would have been Newt, I would have been crying because he's my favorite. But so maybe there just wasn't enough space in the book to develop Chuck as much as the other ones. It makes sense that he's the one who made the sacrifice because, you know, Thomas became like a real big brother figure to him. You know, they loved each other like brothers, and I could see why out of everybody he would be the one to do that. I understand that. It had to be him if anyone was going to do it, but I wish I had felt more. I wish I had felt sadder. I just felt bad for Thomas for now not being able to keep his promises. Oh, makes me feel kind of bad about myself that I don't. It's a character, it's not a real child. Okay. So to sum it up, I really enjoyed this dystopian book. Really enjoyed The Maze Runner. I liked it. It had a lot of good elements. It was, in my opinion, quite fast-paced, you know, because once the ball got rolling, it just stayed rolling. And it was easy to read. It was pretty quick. Let me see how many pages on it. 374. No. Maybe written a little bit bigger font. Maybe. Because it's YA. It's a little bit bigger. But it was easy to get through. It kept me going all the way to the end. And what happens at the end, after they get rescued, spoiler, what happens at the end, Dashner solves most of the plot problems, but he leaves one of the plot problems unsolved, which we thought was solved, and then he tells us, it's not solved. And it is enough to be satisfied if I wanted to put the whole series down that I read this one. But it is also enough of a, I don't want to even say cliffhanger. It's more of a tease because it's not a frustrating cliffhanger. It's a tease into book 2. It was enough to make me want to continue, and I will. And I hope to read the whole series. That's my plan. So do I recommend this book? Yes, I do. If you like dystopian, it's YA, so it's a little bit of, it's child focused, teenage focused. If you want to consider them children, I do. I'm at that age, I do. And they are a slight little abusive situation because of what they're being put through by adults. But again, when is that not the case in a dystopian book? So it is male-led. We're following Thomas, and there are themes of hope and friendship, and there's no easy going. They got to work for everything. So if you like that type of book, definitely pick up The Maze Runner. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.